I'm Kay Adams. I'm so honored and thrilled to be here with the most brilliant panelists, each experts in their space, as we talk about growth, as we talk about momentum, as we talk about brand support, and where women's sports are headed. So it's the power and equity of women's sports, unlocking growth, value, and cultural impact. I like these things to be a little more fun, so let's put our hands together and please welcome my esteemed colleagues here. Let's start with Kamal, Bhandal, Global Invisalign brand and America's marketing leverages brand strategies and partnership guru, who I spent all last night with on the NFL Honors carpet. Let's please hear it for Kamal Bhandal. She's here. We have Phoebe Schecter, an analyst, a fellow analyst, on-air talent, of course, with Sky Sports, somehow still playing football at the same time. I don't know how you manage that. And you, of course, are redefining access, visibility, fan support, youth trajectory, all of the things. I'm such a huge fan of yours. Thank you for being here today. And yeah, I love it. Now let's keep the applause going for Jess Smith, the president of Golden State Valkyries. Woo, 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 woo. Responsible for building a women's franchise from day one in a major sports market. I'm so honored to be here today, sharing this space with you three and to get all of your perspective. You know what I hear a lot is, oh, you work in sports, you cover sports. Wow, women's sports are having such a moment. And I hear it and I'm like, ugh, cringe, record scratch, because it's not a moment, it's a movement. I'm so tired of hearing that, and there's so much growth and there's so much happening. So I thought we could start maybe by celebrating some of those wins before we talk about where things are headed. So Jess, if it's okay, I'd like to start with you in talking about record viewership, some of the great things that are happening, selling out arenas, new franchises popping up, that kind of momentum. What is actually driving that growth?
The fans. And it's a mixture of everybody. And I will say the WNBA is 30 years old, right? So in this moment that's happening, it's actually been decisions and failures and wins that have been happening over time that have led us here. But it's everybody really understanding the opportunity at the same time, being driven by consumers. Consumers really understand the power that they play right now. They understand that if they're watching, if they're buying merchandise, if they're buying tickets, if they're following these athletes and folks adjacent to the sport, that's actually what's going to drive brand support and continuous funneling into the sport itself. So it's not that complicated, actually. It's a great product, and it's making sure the right visibility is on it and then driving the results around it as well.
Does something feel unique to this time?
I think that for me, I have a unique experience having been with Angel City right before the Valkyries. So I understand working in two different leagues in two different markets and that there is a specific playbook. And for me, the way that I've dissected that is I think COVID played a lot into it. Everybody sat still for a minute and we're all looking for something to watch. But we all also questioned where we're spending our time, where we're spending our money, how we want to live our lives in the way that we do in the society that we want to reflect the world that we believe in. And there popped the WNBA on the Wubble, and we saw the viewership rise, and then we saw everybody talk about that. I think that was a light switch moment for people to really understand that consumer power that I talked about, and people aren't looking back. And then this younger generation knows no different. And that's because of the work that's been done year over year by these incredible athletes throughout time. For me, that moment was the 99ers and watching Brandy Chastain rip her shirt off. I was like, fuck yeah. But that was like the aha moment where I was like, I can do anything, and I was 13. Mm-hmm. And how many of those moments have happened since then that are impacting these next generations of boys and girls around the power of women's sports that continue on today?
There are some voices, Kamal, that say this has happened before. There have been these moments, but they don't last. They don't compound. From an Invisalign perspective, a brand perspective, what are you noticing in driving change?
Well, I think it goes back to what Jess said. It's all about the power of the consumer, right? At the end of the day, what we're noticing is this momentum is driven by a reflection of how women buy, right? There's all sorts of data out there. HBR did a study that really showcased that women buy and follow brands that reflect them. So I think you see women of all ages, 10-year-old girls all the way up to their moms, their grandmas, really getting involved because what the industry has really done is reflect themselves in the brand deals, in the athletes, as well as in the way that the teams are going to market.
And Phoebe, you're hearing this. You're talking about you're hearing Jess talk about the athletes and the responsibility you sort of bear. I mean, there's a great example in flag football, which is exploding in a way that you probably could have only imagined years ago. What's your perspective?
Yeah, and I loved it because Jess brought up the fact that it's not just about young girls. It's about these young boys that are also growing up seeing that women can do absolutely anything. And a great example the other day at one of the flag games on site, I mean, first off, the fact that we have flag games at Super Bowl week and multiple of them, I think just goes to speak to the growth. But these couple little boys were like, we need to see Izzy Gracci, we need her autograph. And that's what you want to see. So from a young age, they don't know any different. And right now within flag football, NCAA have just called it an emerging sport, which is incredible for the future. Of course, the Olympics in 2028, we're less than 2.5 years away from that. Scholarships for college athletes. It's a varsity sport in high school. You know, we're constantly trying to get all these states to sanction, and it's never just a one-prong approach. It's a multitude of people and organizations pulling in the same direction. That's led us to this unbelievable moment.
And I think one thing to click into is also, for many years, it was the assumption that an NBA fan was a WNBA fan, an MLS fan was an NWSL fan. And it's the same sport. We must just get this same consumer to add on another 20 games to their 40-game plan. That's not it, right? And I think one of the things that's been unlocked is building unique, powerful products for what that consumer wants versus trying to serve them, candidly, like a watered-down product of maybe a men's sports team that they love. And that's a big piece of this equation. Why I love flag so much is I think there's such an opportunity to build within that, like all at once, of like where the sport is today. But any guesses for, I said this yesterday too, and some of you may have already heard, we have over 10,000 season ticket holders, the same as the Warriors. Any guesses for the percentage of overlap of fans?
Oh, I love crowd participation. Ooh,
Anyone know?
somebody shoot out a guess.
Huh? 7%. Why would you ever build a product for 7% of an audience, right? And when I was at Angel City, when we were just figuring it all out, I remember thinking, like, did we want to try to affiliate with one of the men's teams in some branding capacity? Did we want to think about that? And I was like, let me call around and ask some questions. And I called a lot of venues, whether it was like shared ownership or non-shared ownership of basketball and soccer teams. And even in shared ownership models, you never saw above 10%. And it was really an unlock for, well, then we have to build it our way. Like, we have to go for it in this capacity. And what you're seeing funnel in is, yeah, that traditional sports fan's coming because they're psyched because the athletes are incredible and the product's good. But there are a lot of people funneling into sports for the first time through women's sports. We see a huge crossover with the ballet, with the opera. Like, the arts are actually a huge opportunity for us because they're culturally relevant in a way that shows the values of regions. And once they're in, by the way, they know everything about every player. So it's just that top of funnel mindset to bring them in. And you better believe that men's sports, like we're with Golden State, the opportunity is that we hope they become Warriors fans too, right? So, you know, I think the flag football opportunity, again, like has a lot of that same synergy to it.
Women's sports, not a moment, a movement, as we're talking about. It's a growth engine, truly, but that doesn't mean that, you know, growth doesn't automatically mean equity. It doesn't mean equality, equal equity. So I want to explore maybe some of, you know, we're unlocking the growth, but also some of the things that are on the table as the growth is leading to an inflection point. And maybe I'll ask you, Kamal, how you sort of view that inflection point.
So one of the things we always think about is how do we ensure that the women, the players, the athletes that we work with really have the same opportunities as the men do. Now, Invisalign is a healthcare brand, right? And not only is it for adults, but we also have a kids brand. So no matter what her age is, we always come to the table with value to provide access and equity because we all know these women are not getting paid in the same way that the men are, right? And so for us, we want to make sure that we're bringing the healthcare aspect to them so that they have access and visibility to something that, quite honestly, they deserve.
And Phoebe, when she says something like that, how does that, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more because you have to think about the female athlete. And again, I come from this flag background, but we're in a really unique spot because we're just building, but we're on this skyrocket trajectory at the right time. And it's, well, what does that look like for the athlete in the moment? What happens after they're done playing, especially because it's such an explosive sport. You know, a lot of these athletes are going to age out. So what does that health perspective look like? What is that ability to use your name, image, likeness? How do you benefit from that, I guess, post-playing career ultimately?
From your perspective, what does need to be recognized most as far as a modern CBA, the things that you're already talking about, visibility, career longevity, global opportunity? What do you prioritize?
I think prioritizing, you want to look at ultimately like the health of the athlete as well. I think, what do you offer post-career? Because we're in this fun spot where there's so many great youth players coming through, but then there's this chunk of athletes who may make it through the first round of Olympics, and then what happens to them? They've carried the sport for so long. So what does that look like post-career, and how do they continue to utilize their platforms? And as really, brands are using their name, image, likeness, how can they benefit from that after their careers are done playing?
Yeah, there's a lot of how. How do brands and investors define that commitment? Kamal, I'm looking at you. What does commitment look like right now?
I think first it starts with showing up. Second, be consistent, right? To your point earlier, this is not a moment. Like, this is here. So, the fans are driving the momentum, and we need to make sure that we are consistent with showing up for her, right? Throughout the entirety of her career. And by the way, it's not just for the players, right? When you think about the confidence crisis that's going on with young girls, with 45% of girls dropping out of sport, not because of skill, but because of body confidence issues, that hits us right here in the heart, right? So we're one of the brands that fortunately adds to a young girl's confidence. And so we want her to be able to see all the roles that she can play in the industry, right? I want every girl to know, yes, she can be the player, right? But she could be any one of you three up here as well and still have an amazing role in the industry.
Jess, what kind of partners actually help teams grow? And I mean, just beyond logos, let's say.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in partnership needs to be picky. When you sit down with brands, they are just as much a reflection of you as you are of them. And it's important to think about it from a revenue perspective. Of course, it's one of the key drivers in the business that is sport. But the why is really important. It needs to be a long-term impact, to your point. Like, why are we at the table? What do we want to achieve? Of course, there's the values, that have measurements to it from a media perspective. But what people and consumers really want is to understand why you came together in the first place. That's what makes sports really powerful, and that's what makes partnerships work and continue to grow when brands are seeing the success to them. So for us, every partner that we had as we built the Valkyries, we sat down and asked that question first. And even when I came on board, brands that wanted to chat with us, we just said, I need a few months actually, because we need to define who we are first and what we're looking for and what it means to be a partner of the team before we come back to the table and tell you what that capacity is. So it's brands that get that, and it's brands that understand the long-term continued growth and impact. Like, that's our job, to be measured and provide the right analytics that make the investments make sense. To Kamal's point, like, it is a business driver, it is a unique audience, we have to share that. But brands not only investing with the team, but understanding how to drive the industry at large through media, endorsements, and lifestyle opportunities also add a lot to the table.
We want to, this is on a global scale, we're talking about flag. I want to ask you, Kamal, do brands and investors, how do you decide when it comes to a long-term bet, a long-term play versus short-term visibility?
You've got to go back to who your customer is. She is my buyer, right? Again, whether she's 10 years old, whether she's 45, whether she's 75, right? She is our buyer, and she is influencing purchasing decisions. 80% of healthcare decisions are made by women, right? And so for us, the long-term game is really important. I'm wearing a custom Penelope Jane jacket today. Penelope Jane is a 10-year-old designer from the Bay Area, right? She plays basketball, loves the Valkyries.
I got to see this thing.
And
really
check
cool.
it out.
Let's do a little
right?
360, please, not to put you on the spot. Come on. Oh, wow.
Look at this. But here's the deal.
That is so
right?
awesome that you're wearing that.
To your point around long-term, right? She's not my customer today, but she will be. And so it's really important for us from a brand standpoint to understand this is not a conversation about giving. It is not charity work. This is about revenue and a revenue driver to ensure that who our buyer is sees herself with our brand, right? And as we want to become a brand for kids, we need to make sure that we understand what she cares about. So 10-year-old Penelope is who we care about.
And now I need one.
Yeah.
We all need a jacket. I love that. Phoebe, I wanted to ask you, as you're hearing this, is there a policy, as you know this better than anyone, of doing what you do, is there a shift in investment that you would like to see that you think would most accelerate women's participation so those confidence numbers go up so we do keep growing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's ultimately, we're kind of in that position, looking at Invisalign, even Under Armour have done a great job with this, highlighting those women within those roles. And we always go back to that, if you can see her, you can be her. But it's true, because, you know, growing up, I didn't know that there was someone like me that could be coaching or be an analyst like yourself as well. You know, you've got to be able to experience these things and show those young boys and girls that this is what the future could hold for you. And so I think the more that we can kind of, at some point, we have to keep highlighting these people until this whole floor gets risen and everyone understands, well, this is what the future looks like. Flag football sport is for all, and we all get these opportunities. And I was thinking, as you were speaking, we've had this great stat within flag football that 40% of our young girls in particular that are playing flag football had actually never even engaged in sport before.
Wow.
So they're coming from not even having that sporting background, but you've got the community that you're building, which is such a big part of this. You've got this element of you go out there and you play football for the first time and you've got this confidence about you, that empowerment. Like you just walk with like your chest up like, yeah, I play football now. And it's this like authenticity and it's this real cultural movement that's happening right now.
Well, and that's a perfect little shift to the bigger picture, right? The cultural change that is happening and being catalyzed by everything that we're working so hard for. So there are wins and there's revenue, but it unlocks something culturally. Jess, I'd love to hear your perspective on how you view that, why that matters to you.
I mean, everything. I mean, for me personally, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I really give credit to the fact that I had that access to sport. In sport, like the Super Bowl is a key moment in sport every year. Sport is a reflection of society at any given moment. The most important conversations happening in the entire world are going to happen here. It's going to happen again when World Cup comes here. And I think that's really important to keep in mind for those of us in sport to think about it at all levels and the influence that we have to make sure that we're pushing that forward.
Same question, Kamal.
Well, I look at that and I think about the responsibility that brands have. We have a responsibility to create access and visibility for everyone, our future customers, and as we think about the confidence crisis that we just talked about, it's really important for us to use all the stages that we have to create that access and visibility. Now, how do you do that? You don't just wake up one day and all of a sudden you have a lot of confidence. You've got to build and you've got to practice. And so one of the things we really think about is how do we use every stage that we have, every moment that we have to create that access and visibility. So we have high school girls here as creators on the ground doing content with us. One of them was here yesterday and we worked with her at the Invisalign Bay Area Women's Classic a year ago, and I was talking to her mom about how great it is that she's here, and she said, do you know that she wrote about working with you guys in her college essays? That's impact, and that's how you drive the longevity of shattering some of these numbers that we keep citing.
And I think what's important to point out too is we're talking about access. You have to fund it. You know, it costs money to provide access. And so I think like that's a huge commitment. It's not just, I think when people say that and see it, they don't understand the financial commitment that brands make, institutions make, people make with their time. And in fact, like Bay Area Host Committee is a great example of this, of every sports team and city in this region coming together, understanding whether football's like your sport represented or not, what this event will mean for the history and access to this region. But the funding part, I don't think can be ignored either, right? Because then it becomes charitable, but the purpose-driven funding of opportunity and the one-to-one that you guys are doing is huge.
And I think to that part, right, the funding part and the consistency of that is so important. But oftentimes, I think in the industry, investing in women's sports is thought of as a giving component, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Make no
Let's
mistake,
talk about
this
that.
is about revenue.
That is
right?
Let's unpack it.
At the end
That
of
is
the
such
day,
a thing. It's like, oh, it's like I don't want to use the charity word, but there's something.
Feels like charity.
Does it?
there's
There's something
a
about
lot
it
of
that
conversation
feels,
about that,
let's
right?
just get real here
But at
for
the
a
end of the
sec,
day,
yeah.
make no mistake, this is about driving business through the person who is buying your product, right?
And I will say, it's up to the folks that need to drive business, because it is the most important thing to do. When we talk about equity, you have to drive business to drive equity, right? We can't ignore that, but it's up to the institutions and the teams and the investors to make sure that you're building a product that's warranting the investments that you're seeking. Otherwise, it does feel charitable. You know, I think there's a lot of conversations around like, well, you should be doing this. That's not healthy on either side, because if you should and it's not going to execute correctly, it's actually not helpful when it comes time to renew, when it comes time to justify other spends in different areas. So I do think there's a variety of areas of responsibility to make sure the product and the results are top notch to justify the continued investment that we need to see continue to rise.
And that's so you can eradicate that just a little bit. Sorry, Phoebe.
No, you're fine. I mean, I think you bring up a great point as well. It's using an example. In the UK, we've just been sponsored by Nike, but this is the first time, and it's like this whole new attitude of actually someone sees us, and it shouldn't have to get to that point. And I feel like we're in a very unique situation where, because it is about to be an Olympic sport, well, now funding is coming in, and you're starting to get people who are in this in-between of, am I an Olympic athlete, or am I just somebody who works full-time and I play sport? And we're having to try and find a way out of that and create these identities. But when you look at, I think about from broadcasting, when we're talking or looking at like the socials, it's the women that have the best engagement, and the communities pull together. They're resharing. We're putting out all these things, and actually the women have made better people in terms of marketing because they're authentic. They're excited about it. It may be new and fresh, but they're going to do what they love and they're passionate about.
We're talking about commitment from brands, of course. You were just talking about from governing bodies, all of that. From the league perspective, can you be a little more specific, Jess, on ways to show what that real commitment looks like when it comes to scaling sustainably?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many stakeholders, the league being one of them, right? And media is a huge component of that. The right visibility, the right partners, the right structure to allow everyone to thrive is incredibly important. But I think one of the areas that will be really important to women's sports moving forward in the immediate realm is infrastructure. So access to the right types of places to practice, to play games, to have great broadcast experiences and fan experiences will up-level everything together. And I think for so long, that's just been something, I mean, overall, like I remember back in the day, I should say, I was in a room and someone was considering investing in women's sports. And the conversation was very much like, well, if we sell 4,000 tickets, we'll break even. Who starts a business that way, right? And I think infrastructure and player ability to thrive, tell story, like all those things all go together. And I think infrastructure needs to be focused on moving forward across women's sports.
I think we've covered so much. The cultural impact, I mean, my story for cultural impact would be I was on the phone with my two nieces this morning, how Super Bowl, they're in Chicago, it's snowing, all of that. And they're like, we're going to, do soccer and flag football later. And they're like, when you were little, I know I didn't play flag football. It wasn't even a thought. And they just thought I was crazy that it wasn't available to me, that there wasn't even a conversation about it. So just before we even wrap and get to some of the bold predictions for what the future holds, just thank you all for your work and everything that you do. I'm so appreciative, personally.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. You're a goat. Phoebe, I need a photo of you with you so my nieces think that I'm cool. That's the whole vibe. Okay, so we're gonna do a little call to action to sort of wrap this, and I wanna end with this. We all agree that we are at an inflection point with the growth of women's sports. If you had to name one decision that leaders must make in the next 12 months to ensure that this momentum continues and turns into lasting equity, lasting growth, what is that? And let's start with Kamal.
I think for me, it goes back to really understanding who your buyer is. Understand what they need. Chances are it is predominantly women, right, across categories, and get to know how she buys, because it will be very different in terms of how she buys versus men's sports. And that call to action couldn't be more urgent for us in terms of really understanding the data as opposed to making decisions without the data.
Phoebe?
I'd say it's creating a sustainable infrastructure. I know we've got talks around the pro leagues that are going to be coming out, but making sure that that's not just about the athlete who's playing, but what does the coaching look like, the officiating, the broadcasters, how are we bringing everybody along on this journey with us and making sure that we're all growing and developing, and then of course the athlete being taken care of from that infrastructure perspective.
Yeah, I'm gonna say two, I'm gonna cheat. But fan experience and player experience. Like player experience, I think is what we all understand. Like, we will be important and the fans are there to see them. But we can't forget that this is fun. The whole reason this exists are that people care about it. And I think we can't overlook every element of fan experience. What does it feel like when they walk in your venue? What does it feel like if they live across the globe and follow your brand? As growing women's sports entities, whether you're an athlete, a property, a league, we can't ignore the opportunity to acquire those fans and create a world-class experience to keep them here.
What's one thing you do that really has worked for you guys in that regard?
Gosh, there's so many.
Tell us your secrets.
Well, I'll say the thing that we did that I think was the most impactful for our success is our branding. I think everyone expected us to take a page from the Warriors and become blue and gold. And we talked about the unique audience. We also talked about, from a general consumer, if you see blue and gold, that is the Warriors, right? They've earned every right to that brand recognition and the opportunity to build their own legacy boldly and then continue to tell that story through the values allows that to be something that's ongoing. This isn't a movie premiere, right? Like year one was amazing. I don't care. Like this is legacy in the making, you know? So it was really important to come out and build that really well so that we have the opportunity and the permission from the fans and future fans to keep going. So we have to be bold and build something that's uniquely yours.
We have to be bold, is what I heard, which is that is what I will take with me from this incredible conversation. Thank you, the three of you, for taking the time. I can't even imagine what your weekends look like. So thank you, and let's hear it for our panelists.
Good job.
Thank you.